Hi everyone, this is Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn, and together with chesslecture.com, I'd like to welcome you to today's video. Now, today I want to share with you a very instructive game played by my student who is about 2150 strength or so against a similar rated opponent. And since this was played online, these days, everyone is playing online. Nonetheless, the ideas from this game are very instructive. Now, the opening is called the Trompowsky after the moves d4, knight f6, bishop g5. A lot of people are afraid of the Trompowsky because it's quite a rare opening. On the other hand, people who play it really love it. So it's one of those openings that you either love or hate. But as a black player, we want to have an answer for this opening, specifically a setup that we really love. So I'm going to recommend to you a setup from my black book, starting from the move c5. I've actually played this move c5 multiple times with great success, and typically white player either pushes the d pawn or takes. In this case, white took the knight, and 80 to 90% of the players here will play g takes f, which is considered theoretically better try. I actually like an unorthodox e takes f, away from the center, but opening the bishop for a huge attacking potential. Now, what is the drawback of e takes? Well, we're going to get ourselves a static weakness. He plays e3, d5, c3. This is a clear-cut weakness. This pawn on d5 is called isolated queen pawn, or as we call IQP. White has a very solid defensive structure, and these double pawns a little bit weak, right? But it's the d5 pawn that's extremely weak. So your natural question is, well, why are you voluntarily creating the static weakness? Isn't it bad in the endgame? Aren't you going to get in trouble? And my answer is, you're absolutely correct, right? If white gets to the endgame, and if white even manages to trade one of the bishops, the c5 bishop, white will have a free advantage. But that doesn't mean that black is worse. You can say black is statically slightly worse, but what does black have in return? Well, first of all, rapid development, right? We have to count development as a very important thing in chess. And the bishop pair, which could come in handy, especially when you are attacking. Now, in this game, after castles, white still needs to get the knight out, the bishop out, the king out, and only then we can say these guys are roughly, developmentally about the same. However, in this game, white plays bishop e2 first, trying to be very, very smart about preventing the bishop g4 pin. Thinking, okay, I'm just going to play knight f3 next, castle, knight bd2, knight b3, knight d4, slowly outplay black. Well, that is, of course, wrong thought process, because black is not going to sit back and wait. Black has some really cool ideas. And my student plays queen b6, immediately hinting this pawn is a liability. You push it to b3, this pawn becomes a liability. If you push it to b4, the bishop can swing back. And white actually played queen b3 exactly using that thought process. Statically, in the endgame, he is better. He's going to open the a file. He may push for b4. And he may be right. He may be a little bit better in the endgame. But here comes the real cool idea. Queen c7. Shocking move. And white player realizes that this pawn is free. Why would he put the queen on b3 and not take that pawn? Right, he knows bishop e6 and d4 is coming. He says, well, that's free pawn, guys. And now, guys, we come to the next realization. In chess, time and material are connected, meaning that every time white is wasting precious moves rather than developing his pieces, for example, right, he wasted 1-2 moves. Did that help him develop? Nope. He's actually going to waste a third move with the queen after bishop e6. And guess what? This is bad position. After knight c6, black is completely done with the opening. White, on the other hand, still hasn't got the knight out, still hasn't castle, and still hasn't got this knight. White is 3 tempi, as we say, right? Time, we call it tempo. 3 tempi behind in development. Are 3 tempi sufficient to be down a pawn for black? Absolutely yes. There's so many gambits, especially the e4, e5 territory, right? That the great masters of the past, such as Paul Morphy, played, where they would give up pawns or pieces just to force their opponent's king to get stuck in the center for a big attack. And here comes the real answer why it is black who is actually materially better. Surprise, surprise, because you only look at the pieces that are on the board, not the ones that left the board. And the reason why black is much better materially, each of these pieces, the rooks, are worth 5 points. They're ready to enter at any moment. What about the h1 and a1 rooks? Are they really worth 5 points? You would probably agree with me that they're no more than 1 point each, right? For them to get active, you gotta move the knight's castle, and then they start to reach their full potential. So black's rooks are already in the game. For just 1 pawn, if anything, it's black who has extra material. So I want you to start thinking quite differently when it comes to material. And how is the greediness gonna get punished? So here queen h5 is played, hitting that bishop. I guess the idea is to play knight f3 in castle, very logical move, but still doesn't count as development move at all. Queen b6 exclamp, hitting that b pawn. White plays b3, and here I really love what my student does next. Of course, he can just activate the rooks and get very simple compensation, right? But then white will try to hide with his king and at least claim somewhat of normal development. Instead, black played the move that probably shocked his opponent. So why don't you guys pause the video and try to figure out black's next move. And if you need more time, make sure you pause the video and really try to solve that, because the move is going to be a shocker to you as well. And the move here, guys, is knight b4. What, you may wonder? I know you're a threat, but aren't you giving me a free piece like that? And that's exactly what white player also said. But there is an answer to that. Remember, we talked about material that's on the board, which is the 2 rooks. And this guy is completely out of the game. This guy's out of the game. This guy is now temporarily in the game, but doesn't really do anything. White is actually down material, believe it or not. Now, this move, knight d2, results in a beautiful checkmate in attack. King f1 would have been a much better try. But even without any calculation, I can tell you that once the rooks are entering the game, white is pretty much busted. This knight can't go anywhere. This rook is stuck. Rook c1 is a huge threat. I mean, I don't even know what white should do here, honestly. This is just game over. So he played knight d2, simply takes, opens the king up, and now the 2 rooks that are worth 5 points each, and these guys are simply kind of useless, watching their monarch, their king on c2 getting slaughtered. Check. Of course, b5 wins too, but he took. Check. Simple check. And now guess what? Material is in black's favor already. Just a few moves. The king is still stuck in the center. But the funny part is these guys never got out. It's already a resignable position, believe it or not. But because this is an online game, people try to play on, they try to fight. So king f3 was played. Perhaps he's thinking about g3, king g2 and get the knight out. I don't know. But simple, queen d1 puts an end to that. You see, simple skewer. You have to move the knight. And after knight g2, white resigned. So let's go back and really try to understand how quickly white sort of played the natural moves in the opening, how quickly white fell apart starting from this queen b6 sequence. All right, right here. So with this move, right, we're provoking weaknesses. White says, no, 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 I wanted straight queens. Black says, well, on my own terms, here white already makes, I would say, a rather serious concession by winning that pawn. But he thought to himself, since my queen is on b3, and the bishop is coming in, I might as well take it. Of course, knight f3 followed by castle and knight d4 would have been the much safer way to play. The game still could continue. For example, bishop e6 with a big threat of d4, knight d4, and now black can simply develop naturally with knight c6, knight a5. Bishop can swing here to attack the king, but the game is far from over. This is, I would say, maybe rough equality. I would still prefer black, but it's not obvious how black's gonna create the attack. So taking that pawn, I think, is very much it's a typical club player move, meaning that they don't see why they can't win the pawn, but a stronger player, master class player, will already understand you're losing way too much time. Way too much time. And another tempo loss. And that was the star move of the entire game. So the rest is basically using the fact you have much better development, better coordination, and I would argue you are the one who has more material as black, not the other way around. Because material is relevant, and the two rooks that black has, that are 5 points each, are actually 5 points, whereas white's rooks on a1 and h1 are maybe 0 or 1 at best. So that is an important lesson, and that's how you can beat a lot of players who play the Trompowsky. Thank you very much. This was Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn and chesslecture.com. Goodbye.